Hi guys, today I want to talk about one of the key attributes of God, which is Him being one. In the Quran, it's mentioned many places. One of the places I'm gonna read right now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
So for those of you who don't understand Arabic, in the first verse of this small chapter in the Quran, we say قل هو الله أحد. God is telling the Prophet, say that He is the God that is one. And at the end of this, again, we say وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And there is nobody like Him. So there is no second entity that's like God. So God is only one, no one is like Him, and uh, there aren't separate entities of God. So this obviously this idea, this thought, it differs with the thought of God in other religions like Christianity, where they say God has like three parts, or God is three, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So we don't agree with that because of the following reasons I'm going to present. So the first one is that if there were many gods, if there were a few gods, or two gods, we're going to have to differentiate between them. So how do we differentiate? We assign one some kind of attributes and the other kinds of attributes. So if they have the same attributes, why don't we just categorize them in the same place? Because it's not like they occupy different spaces, because God is out of space and time. So if they have the same attributes, it's not going to make sense. But if they have different attributes, that will mean there are two separate entities. So these two separate entities, they have different attributes. But one of the very important attributes of God is that He's complete and He doesn't lack anything. But if these two gods have separate attributes, that means this God doesn't have some of the attributes that this one has, and this one doesn't have some of the attributes that this one has. So they're incomplete. And that's why we say God is one, because if there were different entities, they're going to have different attributes, and these different attributes mean the other one lacks some attributes. And we can't have that. God has to be complete and shouldn't lack anything. Because He controlled this infinite universe and He's all powerful and all knowing. So He doesn't lack anything. Second argument that can be made is that imagine like a company with two CEOs, two all-powerful CEOs. Like one of them owns 50% and the other one's on the other 50%. If they disagree on something and they can't get each other to agree, they're gonna either tear the company apart, or everything in the company is gonna stop to a halt. Nothing is gonna go forward. Or like in government, as you can see, like when at the beginning of the year, like nothing was going forward because both parties had a lot of power. Both parties like had quite a number of seats in the house, and they couldn't agree on stuff, and nothing was going forward. Another example can be made for like two referees in a football match. If the two referees disagree on something, like one says there has been an offside, or the other one says like there hasn't, and they can't get each other to agree on something, and there is no like footage that they can make sure, again, if they disagree, the whole game is gonna come to a halt. Or like some will agree with him and some will agree with him, and then like there's gonna be chaos, and you know it's not going to be a nice scene. All of these examples, what did they have in common? They had two all-powerful beings that are separate and had different points of views that make them disagree on stuff. Because when you have two different points of views, like it will happen, there is going to be a disagreement. So when this disagreement happens, what should they do? They both think they're in the right, they're both all powerful, and everything is going to come to a halt, or everything is going to become chaos. But we see in this world that there is chaos, but it's all organized. So everything is organized, nothing is changing, nothing fundamentally is changing. And that's the second reason why God can't be two. There has to only be one God. Another attribute that kind of relates to this loneliness of God is that God is only one entity, not made up of parts. So another thing is that we can't imagine anything of God, because if we imagine anything of God, we're limiting him, and God is limitless. So we can't like say, oh, God might have a hand or like a leg or something, because when we give him these attributes, we're limiting him to our own world and our own imagination, and we cannot do that, because we say that God is infinite, all powerful, all knowing, and some of the attributes that we have in ourselves, and all the attributes in ourselves, they are all limiting us in a certain way, but God has no limits. So that's why we can't give God like a beard or like a hand or like space or time. He exists out of all of that, and he's not made up of parts, obviously, because if he's made up of parts, again, these different parts, they're limiting the capabilities of God. And if he's made up of two like entities that can think, well, that's just going to be two entities that will disagree with each other. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about God and Islam and stuff like that, please consider subscribing.